Well, welcome to episode 3 of the Rugby League United podcast, where the sport's biggest names discuss their life, their career, and aspects of their mental fitness. A variety of themes we're looking to explore across the various episodes, with a special focus today on connecting, on the importance of giving, of talking, and on trust as well. And our guest, who himself is doing some wonderful things, not only on the rugby league pitch, but perhaps more importantly off it as well, is one of the best centres in the game, I suppose, Wakefield and England centre, Reece Lyne. Great to see you. How are you, first of all?
Yeah, really good, thank you. It's obviously it's unprecedented times at the moment, so yeah, it's been nice to spend a bit of time with the family. I've got a young daughter who's 2 next month, so she certainly keeps me on my toes. So yeah, I've just been busy, obviously being a dad, and just trying to tick over with rugby and stuff, training as much as possible.
There are positives, aren't there? We focus on the tough stuff, but actually speaking, I spoke to Rob Burrow at length last week, and he said, I wouldn't have had this much time with my family. And that is what is so precious right now. It's kind of giving us stuff that we might have not otherwise indulged in as much, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. And don't get me wrong, there is the odd days of stuff where it kind of becomes repetitive, and obviously for a sports person like myself, a routine is massive. So kind of not having that, you do have some tough days as well. But as you say, it's something what I don't think we'll ever get again. The chance to kind of be in your family's, well, your immediate family's pockets. Like I say, if you've got young children or what have you, to see them grow up day in, day out, like the changes I've seen in my daughter are daily. So yeah, to see them changes every day, it's brilliant. I think you just got to make the most of it, because I don't think something like this will ever happen again in our lifetime.
And I think what we'll probably find as well is that it won't just be over. There'll be, there will be change. There'll be long-standing impact, won't there? What other thing you mentioned? Like some days you do have tough days still, even though your approach to it seems spot on. What are those triggers, or what are the things you worry about?
Yeah, I just get a lot of kind of anxiety, really. It's just like I say, I'm a person, especially with being in sport, everything's pretty much black and white. You wake up, you go to training, you get told what to do, then you come home and then you're just occupied. So for me, it's trying to just keep my mind occupied. I'm a person where kind of, if I've got too much time on my own, things can kind of wear off a bit. So it's just kind of knowing about yourself and just being able to just control them kind of controllables. It's like, for me, I won't lie, I'm not a massive fan on training. I don't love training, but even like on my days off, I still have to train. So I just feel like it just gives me a kind of purpose while we're off to get that day to a good start. Otherwise, I just feel myself just lying around, kind of not knowing where the day is taking me. So even though, like I say, I'm not a massive big lover of training, it's more sometimes doing it gives you that edge mentally, really, just to give you some positivity.
That control the controllables, is that just something you have to keep telling yourself? That's something I say to myself a lot when I find myself worrying. It's like, can I do anything about this? If the answer is yes, then you do what you can do about it. If the answer is no, then you just got to roll with it, haven't you? But that is easier said than done. That's kind of an argument you're having in your head to stop thinking about that certain thing.
Yeah, definitely. And it takes years and years, like you say, you don't really realise, but I was, like I say, I suffer with anxiety and just worrying about everything, really. And then when you actually like, now when I sit back and actually think about some of the things that I am worrying about, I'm like, well, can I change them? Like, no, not really. So what's the point of worrying about them? Kind of what will be. And that's had a massive impact on my mental state as well, because I've just learned to just kind of go there, roll with the punches, go say, like, if something is going to happen, it will happen. If I can control it, then I will try and play my part in that. But then if I can't, it's just letting that go kind of thing, and just dealing with it that way instead of worrying.
We'll talk about your rugby in just a sec. Just one thing on that you said already about missing the structure. How do you try and ensure that structure in your life is still there? Do you get up and write a list so that you can tick things off? What are there any little things you do to give yourself structure in your day?
No, well, usually what I do is the day before tomorrow. So like today, I'll already have kind of in my head a plan of what I'm doing tomorrow. So that just gives me a sense of like I'm committed to that. I've got an idea, so then when I wake up, I already know what I'm doing. Sometimes you tend to find if you've got no real plan or direction, you can wake up at 7 o'clock and then by 10 o'clock you're still lying in bed and you kind of don't know where your day's heading, and that's when you start feeling a bit lethargic and a bit down. So I always try and plan the day before, so I've got an idea in my head, kind of what I'm doing, and then that's the plan what I'm going to follow. So that I can wake up, I already know what I'm doing, and then I just go out and kind of do that.
Yeah, I guess that goes into the ways of well-being and the goal setting, which we talked about on last week's episode with Danny, and setting smart goals, which I guess is part of what you're doing, because if they are specific, measurable, attainable, then you're going to tick them off that list and get them done. If we set ourselves in sport, in life, unrealistic targets, they're kind of unhelpful, aren't they? Because they just stay pipe dreams. They've got to be stuff you can do, you can get done.
Yeah, definitely. As you say, they've got to be achievable. There's no point setting real unrealistic goals, because you're constantly going to be putting yourself down by failing. They've got to be realistic, but obviously you can caution on the edge of being a tough goal, which obviously gives you that drive and motivation to kind of reach that. So yeah, it's about having a good balance, but a big thing, like you say, going on to goals is believing in yourself, like to set them goals kind of high and then bars high. Like I've kind of constantly still have this kind of like shock, like when I get picked for England, or obviously all the worry and stuff like that around it. It's just not believing in yourself, really. And I don't think you can really get to the top until you genuinely start really believing in yourself and your ability.
Yeah, my partner says that to me a lot. It's like you can't believe or trust in yourself, trust in other people, if you're not first trusting in you and believing in yourself. How can you expect other people to if you don't? And I suppose that's absolutely right. What you say about drive leads us into what Danny Maguire was saying last week. He was driven when he got into rugby to prove people wrong because of what he was told. He was recounting careers, advisor conversations about when he said, "I'm going to play professional rugby," and they're like, "No, seriously, what are you going to do?" And he used that as his drive and his motivation when he's been told to get a proper job. How did it all start for you? How did rugby become your life? What are your earliest memories of knowing that was going to be the way you were going?
Yeah, well, growing up, I was never really into rugby. It was more playing football at school and stuff. So it wasn't until I think I was nine years old, and I just moved down to a new house in Hull, and I got close to a friend down there, and he was playing rugby. So my mum did drive, so he said, "Oh, like we'll take you down to training." So that was my first earliest memories when I was around 9. And then he was him and his dad and mum were big Hull FC fans, so I ended up getting like a season ticket for Hull FC, and it kind of just went from there. Just started to get the love for the game kind of thing, and I was just a really skinny, fast kid on the wing at first, and then into the centres. So yeah, like I say, I used to love going to the KC, like watching Hull FC, and it just become a real passion of mine. And then you kind of move on to being a ball boy. Absolutely, when I was chosen to be a ball boy because you're part of the scholarship, yeah, that was amazing being on the pitch side, like on Friday nights at games and stuff. I thought that was world class. So obviously, then to get to actually play for like your royal team, it was it was brilliant.
Was there a moment when you realised that something you were just doing because you loved it, you could actually end up making a career out of, making money out of it, making a living out of it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think sometimes for young kids it can kind of be a bit of a downfall as well, because when you're going through school, it's kind of the only thing on your mind. For me, when I was going through school, it was just like, oh, I'm on scholarship, I'm on academy, so all I want to do is kind of play rugby and play for Hull FC at the time. So it kind of takes your mind off the academic a bit. Obviously, you take your eye off that, and for me, it's massively important. Like I went to school and went straight into a full-time environment, so there were no like college or work or anything like that. But it is important to kind of have them fallbacks, or to kind of have something in place or an idea in place for when you want to finish.
Do you regret that kind of that's what happened? You just went to sport, and I don't know, does that perhaps give you some anxiety of what you might do when you're not playing sport because you haven't gone through that education process?
Yeah, it does a bit. It's a good question, and I often sit and think to myself, and I don't have no regrets, as I kind of try not to have regrets. I just kind of see them as it's just experience. But as you say, when you get times like this, or times what kind of, I don't know, you might get a serious injury and you kind of don't know where things can go, and you look back and, like, we have players in our team where they've had that kind of bridge. They didn't make it full time straight away, so they've got a bit of a trade behind them, or they've been to college or university and got some kind of degree. So they kind of know that if rugby kind of doesn't work out, they have something to fall back on. So I often think about that to myself, and I think, like you say, do I wish I kind of had a couple of years in between to kind of get an idea of what I wanted to do after. But I can't complain really with, obviously, I went straight full time from school, and obviously at the time that's the absolute dream and something I always wanted to do. So yeah.
You just got me thinking. I was really fortunate a few years ago to interview Lewis Hamilton. He came into the radio studio, and we actually had a really young kid in there who I think, was what, some schoolboy go-karting champion or something. I probably got that wrong. I can't remember. But what I was so impressed with, and we got them talking to each other in the studio, and what I was most impressed with was when the microphones went off and, Lewis was taken out of the studio and he could have just cleared off and, been the celebrity he is and not wanted anything to do with the little lad. He stood there for 5 minutes talking to the schoolboy and his dad. And I remember what he said. It was like, do you want to be a Formula One driver? And obviously the kid said, yeah. He goes, one tip I would give you is the guys who become world champions are the most intelligent. So you need to make sure you stay in school. You need to do all the right things, because that's going to be the best way for you to achieve your dreams of being a Formula One champion, rather than saying, just sack it off and ride as much as you can.
Yeah.
And that's obviously, I've never thought about that before. I've just remembered that now. I remember thinking how impressive that was from a sportsman to actually know what values we should instill with guys who want to get into sport.
Yeah, definitely. And as you say, you can't just have that tunnel vision. So it's the same for my advice to young kids would be, if you've got to do your studies. I think in rugby league at the moment, they have kind of, they don't really bring them on full time straight from school now. They make them do the college work, and then they kind of come in once that's done. And I suppose as a young sportsman, and your dream is just to play full time, it is a bit of a ball ache for you. But ultimately, down the line, you are going to need that, because rugby and most sports in general is a short career, and the money that you earn in rugby will not set you for life. So, as you say, you get to kind of my age, 27 now, and you're kind of looking at planning, and you do need something in place to fall into after sport. So yeah, it's a great bit of advice that what you say you give, because ultimately you are going to need something. You can't just be tunnel visioned and think, oh, this is where I'm going to go all my life. And it is so easy to do at a young age, to think that something's just going to be there forever, what you want to do.
When you became a professional rugby player and you broke in, I know you, at the time it was something you struggled with, but you've spoken about it since, about how you found it tough mentally. And I think you've talked to, haven't you, about suffering violence and not speaking out because you were going into a macho culture and you were aware that there was a stigma around it. Can you give us a little more of an insight into what you were going through at the time?
Yeah, it's as you say, I'm talking 10 years ago now, when I was kind of coming through the ranks at Hull FC, and obviously you've got your big tough guys like Lee Radfords, Mark O'Mealy's, and all that around you. And as you say, all you want to do as a young kid is play professional sport. So that's all you want to do. You don't want to upset anyone. You just want to go to training, do your best, and hopefully get selected for the team. You don't think of any outside influences and stuff. But obviously, over the years, I've had a lot of time to grow up, and I look back and I just think about how I was just probably just a scared little boy, really. I was 17 years of age, just left school. Like you said, a bit of a tough childhood with things going on in my life, and you kind of don't realise about them or even consider about them. So all you're kind of thinking of is rugby, and if I show any kind of weakness, obviously the coach is going to pick me, or the lads are going to think I'm stupid. As you say, you're just a shy young kid anyway. So to come in and kind of share your feelings is something what you couldn't really do then. And feel really proud now. It's probably taken a bit of time, but we're at the time now where we've got the Rugby League Cares and the state of mind. And I'd like to think if there was a young kid in my shoes coming through, like, I just think the environment within the rugby setup isn't as kind of tough as it was and macho back then, kind of things. So you can open up and speak, and there's a lot of places out there with sporting channels and stuff and numbers all over around the stadium where you can ring people up if you are struggling.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I do a lot now for State of Mind and Rugby League Cares. Well aware of them. We'll discuss sporting chants as well in a minute. Just to pick up on what you said there, do you think it's a landscape thing as well, and the way the world has changed? Because around about the same age in my life, I was having the same struggles, and I just didn't realise because mental health wasn't a thing. I unlike you, who became a professional sportsman, I went to university against my wishes, and I didn't want to. I hated the idea of leaving home, and what I was experiencing at the time was depression and anxiety and fear, and I had no idea that was the case, because we had no awareness of it. And the way of dealing with it was, if it's going on my head, as long as I don't tell anyone else, then it doesn't exist. And that was how I buried it, completely buried it, and kind of, we're years on, and I'm reflecting back on that, like you now, thinking, I wish I'd have dealt with that. I wish I'd have dealt with that at the time. Now, I had people I could have spoken to then. From what you're saying about, would it have been easier for you going into that macho culture if you had that, that circle around you at home to be able to discuss those things with, so that you perhaps wouldn't have had to when you went to play rugby?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? It's because obviously as your age as well, like I'm sat here now 27, 10 years on, and I'm a lot wiser and a lot more mature. So, like you say, at 17, I kind of don't know whether I would or not, but I'd like to think so. As you say, fast forward into times now with the state of mind and all that's available, you'd like to think that you would have been able to kind of talk. And I was sat thinking of it this morning, and I was kind of thinking, I wonder if the world would be a more positive place without kind of social media and the news. And then I kind of flipped that, and I thought, well, the positive side of that is the amount of awareness things like mental health can get from social media and from the news. So it's a kind of a double-edged sword kind of thing, like the social media to obviously Twitter and all that stuff to show awareness, and obviously most of the lads are on that now, so they can see things and they can discuss things in private as well. Like I say, you don't have to go to your coach, you don't have to go to a teammate, you can actually go somewhere in private and just have a chat over the phone. But what just flicked what you just said then is fear for me. Like that was a massive word of mine growing up. Like I look back, and as I say, just as a young kid, 17, that was my biggest word. It was just fear. I remember like getting in the shower before games and just fear and just doubting the worst, not thinking, I'm going to have a good game today and impressing that. It was just the fear of failure and letting people down, really. And it's a really powerful emotion, and if you don't kind of control that or use it in the right way, it can really bring you down, that word. Yeah,
it's so weird, isn't it? How I guess we're set up to think that way negatively. I always, look back at being at school, and I might have absolutely sailed through an exam, got 95%, but I'll walk home thinking of that 5% that I messed up. It's like that. Or what if I fall? And you turn it around and say, well, what if I fly? But that's the way we are, isn't it? It's so strange.
Yeah, it is, definitely. It certainly is.
Yeah, fear is. I mean, was the fear of failure? Was that rugby? Was that the self-doubt? If you were.
Yeah, I just think it
come
from. Yeah, I think it has come from the self-doubt, just that fear of kind of letting people down or just not being good enough, really. And I think that's the key phrase, not being good enough. Obviously, from a young age, my mum was just a single mum of three children who did a fantastic job. So when you start to piece the pieces together, and it's kind of like you feel like, my dad just left, so obviously was I not good enough. And obviously emotions kind of have a role of playing through your life, and you're constantly feeling, am I not good enough, or am I not worthy of being here? And it's a constant emotion. I think everything all falls back to your childhood. Your childhood does play a significant part of your life. It kind of builds the bridges and the foundations, and a lot of my memories of childhood are negative ones, and it's only when you can start really piecing the pieces together as you get older, you kind of realise why you are feeling this way, and understanding the actions of kind of why you're feeling that way and what's maybe caused you to feel that way. So yeah, certainly that's been a big issue of mine. There's kind of, I think it's appreciating yourself and knowing your self-value and your self-worth, being good enough.
Yeah, I honestly, I've been on a really similar journey, and looking back to my childhood, because I've always been a really shy bloke that suffered with social anxiety, and which is ironic considering I've made a career as a broadcaster, which is talking, and I find talking so hard, and it's such it's so important to mental health. But you look back and you think, well, I had two sisters, I was a middle child. So I just sat there and let them talk to each other and stayed in silence, and that's how I kind of ended up how I was. But, that self-doubt, that fear, do you think the onus is on us? Because what we're seeking there, isn't it, is we want reassurance from people. You want someone to say, Reece, what you on about? You're one of the best players in England. And that will make you feel better about yourself. But someone can only say that to you if they're aware of what's going on in your head. And that's why we have to be the ones to offload and tell people, because we can't get that reassurance. We can't invite that support if we don't want it.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's really important, because, as you say, if people don't understand how you feel, if you want to talk to them or understand kind of how you operate, then it's hard for them. And I've always found I've had a really good relationship with all my coaches, and I think it's because they kind of understand how I kind of have had some good chats with them, and they kind of understand where I'm coming from, and like, you are a decent person inside, but obviously you do make mistakes, and mistakes aren't always bad things, as long as you can realise that you have made a mistake and kind of not keep making the same mistakes again. But going on to your question, it does play a big role in you having to open up to other people as well, so they can kind of understand you and help you going forward.
Did some of that self-doubt start to dissipate from you when you became established as a professional? You've already mentioned your shock when you got a call to say you're in the England squad, but when you became established, there must have been a part of you that realised you were there for a reason, and that was because you were really good at what you were doing.
I probably wouldn't say no, not when I got established, because I reckon my life was still probably all over the place. It wasn't until I kind of fully took control of my life and kind of my behaviours and actions, until I really started to my career really started to kick on, and then I kind of got that self-belief, like, yeah, I had a clear mind, and I am a good player, and I think I kind of deserve to be here. But as you say, still getting like phone calls from England last year and the year before, and it still comes as a real shock to me. So going back to what we was talking on earlier with your goals, that's a big thing for me. Not setting them too low, not thinking, oh yeah, I'm not good enough to do that. So, but yeah, it's as you say, you've got to really push the bar high and really have that belief in yourself.
So it's that a lot. Your best performances and you getting recognition from England, reading between the lines, it's the alignment between mental health and physical health. When you've managed, first thing you're doing is managing that mental side, and that's when your performances are getting better, not the other way around. You're starting to feel stronger mentally because you're playing well.
Yeah, no, that's it. Like I say, because I broke into like Wakefield's first team. I was playing regular, but my life was still kind of all over the place, and I still wasn't feeling like fully reassured or felt like I was a key member of the team, or like I should be having that spot week in, week out. So it wasn't until I, as I say, got my house in order mentally before that kind of helped blossom my mind, and then it kicked onto the professional side of things. And then when you start having clear thoughts, it takes you to a good place.
So that point when you decided to get get your house in order mentally, I think you put it, was that the time when you reached out to Sporting Chance?
No, Well, I just been in an incident. I've just been suspended from Wakefield. I was involved in an incident, car crash with Tim Smith and Kevin Locke, and some of the stuff I look back on now, like it's crazy. It's just self-destruction, and I often wonder how I'm not dead. And not, I don't mean that in suicide, but some of the stuff that I've done or not killed somebody or ended up in prison. So that kind of leads me on to think I must be here for a reason, whether that's to be a good dad or to kind of help other people. But yeah, the sporting chance after that suspension, the coach at the time was Brian Smith, and he wanted me to go to a sporting chance. And at the time, I just didn't think it was right for me, and I didn't think being away from my family for that length of time and all that was going to benefit me, because I'm a real big. I love being at home with family and close to family and all that. So at the time, I felt like it's like a light bulb. Like I thought, I need to kind of turn my life around here. This is kind of last chance saloon. So I kind of just asked him to put his kind of trust in me. I felt like I'd understood now what the problems were, and I could deal with them myself, i.e. going to counselling and to deal with gambling. I went to Gamblers Anonymous meetings and stuff like that. So and from that, I kind of made that promise to him and kind of to Michael, the CEO, that I would kind of get my stuff in order, and I just didn't want to let him down. That would give me that other chance to keep my professional career. So I haven't really looked back since then.
At the time when the club told you they were suspending you, what was going through your head? What was your reaction?
Oh, it was just... to be honest, it was just, I didn't really care. That's how manic my life was. It was like I didn't care about my career. Like, I look back now and I think, like, where would I be now? Fast forward 5 years, if I had got suspended and then contracts terminated from the club, where would I be now? But because you're just not clear thinking, and you're just in a world of your own. And as I say, at the time, I didn't really take it for what I actually had in front of me. And obviously I'm so privileged to be in the position I am in. So yeah, looking back now, it was just crazy.
Do you feel indebted to your club that they took that step on your behalf?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously the coach at the time, I said Brian, I had a good relationship with Brian. He was a really good manager, really cared about his players. And obviously Michael, the CEO, still our CEO now, has done a great job. I'm indebted to them, and as I say, who knows where I'd be now, but I'd like to think over the past few years I've kind of paid them back with some performances, and I've had a couple of chances to move away from the club, but the club really means a lot to me. I've been there, I think it's 8 seasons now, and it's got that kind of family feel around it. I kind of relate to the club like kind of my upbringing. It's not the flashiest and not the biggest club, but everyone kind of pulls together, whether that's the volunteers or the staff that we've got, and everyone pulls together and makes it a real family club and makes it work, and we kind of just make the best of what we've got. And yeah, the club really means a lot to me.
You mentioned Sporting Chance and obviously Tony Adams, who started all that up, who's now the BRFL president, and you got given his award last year, didn't you, for your volunteering work that we'll talk about in a sec. How did you feel when that news was given to you?
Yeah, obviously overwhelmed, really. An icon figure like Tony Adams, it was over the moon to receive the first award from him. It's not something you think of, so it's really humbling. Obviously, I kind of went into that line of work to help others, not really get any recognition for myself. So yeah, to get that rewarded off someone like Tony's statue it was overwhelming and really humbling.
That's kind of the way I see it. You know, if there is someone going through such turmoil, if you can, then use that to try and I don't know, make other vulnerable people think differently about themselves, then that is something good that you can take from it. And I'm guessing from listening to you that was what drove you down that route. So tell us a little bit more about that volunteering work that you are and still currently doing with young offenders.
Yeah, it's just I got into it when I was living in Wakefield about 4 years ago. And Stu Dickens, his partner Lisa, was doing a bit of she works with the youth offending team in Wakefield. So I spoke to Stu, and Lisa got me kind of involved in that way. And that was kind of my first foot in the path. And then I led on to doing a bit of volunteering work at Castleford Academy High School, just like around PE teaching and stuff like that, just kind of getting a feel for what I wanted to do. And then I moved back to Hull, and I had a family friend who was working for the East Riding yacht team, so I got involved again doing that. And it was just more just taking lads out for coffee or an ice cream or just a game of pool or whatever kind of suited them, just real low key. And it's just about being a kind of positive role model for myself. I just felt like I kind of had a story to tell and experiences, and I'm not there just kind of preaching to them. Like a lot of these young kids see the counsellors or what, and they think they're just preaching to them or telling them what to do. But I felt like I could relate to them and kind of tell them a bit about my story as well, just to build that trust up. And once you kind of build trust up with somebody, and conversations start to flow, and you break down barriers. So I felt like I could do that by just relating to them. Like I say, I never asked them anything. You kind of tell them your story, and then bits of what they want to tell you start coming out over the week. So I built up a good relationship with a couple of young guys there, and then that led on to Stu said there was an opportunity at Weatherby going into the young offenders there, doing some like group work, which I thought, yeah, that'll be outstanding. So there was me and a couple teammates, David Feeder and Paulie, and a couple of other clubs just went down, and we just kind of delivered sessions. And again, it was just real low key, just playing a bit of pool and just having general chat with them, just seeing how they're getting on, and hopefully just them seeing us putting time into them as key role models, just to help them kind of when they get out of there and realise that hope's not all lost, that there is a track still for them if they want to change their lives around.
It's about when you show your vulnerability, it encourages others to do the same, isn't it? I guess it's that's the bottom line to it. And I'm thinking, listening to you obviously know these people need that role model, and that's someone to talk to and just to bounce off and offload off if they need to offload. Is that you kind of providing that outlet for them because you know personally that that's what you needed at certain times in your life and you didn't have it?
Yeah, 100%. As I say, I look back at my life, and not having a positive role model, especially a male role model, it does have a big impact on your life, kind of thing, because as men, you kind of like to speak to men and kind of following your dad's footsteps. So not having that around and stuff that I went to, that kind of held me from opening up, kind of thing. That's where I started keeping my emotions to myself, because you see mum upset, so you're kind of being strong for mum. So the idea of being that positive role model in these kids' life is, as I said, it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I do believe that it does play a key part. A lot of these kids are just a bit lost, really. Not necessarily bad kids, but they're just a bit lost and need a bit of guidance and just putting on the right track. So, as I said, the more people that can help. Some of the lads are not interested, or they'll still obviously continue to go down their route. But as you say, if you could just help a couple and just show that, I think a lot of it just comes down to caring. If you just show like to someone that you care, then it's a really big emotion, and as I say, it can take you places.
I know how fulfilling it is. I also know how challenging some of that must be for you. Can I ask you, I mean, you've talked a lot in this podcast about self-doubt. I want to ask you this, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but in what you're doing with the young offenders, and we talk about, getting up, bearing your soul and feeling vulnerable. Now, I get self-doubt when I do that in work with State of Mind and Rugby League Cares, because yes, I do have the life experience and I want to share kind of events and experiences I've had and how I've dealt with it. But I'm always acutely aware that I'm not a doctor, and I'm not, I don't am medically trained, and I've been in rooms where I've opened up, and that's got someone to open up to me, and they've told me they're basically that they're suicidal, and they've been struggling for the last 2 days, and that makes me think, well, am I the right person to help this person? But then it's when you talk to them, you realise actually you might be. because they want
Yeah.
to talk, and they want to talk to someone who gets it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm trying to get at there?
Yeah, definitely. And as you said, it's like you say, a lot of people, they don't, all this, the professionals, so to say, like you say, those with all the degrees in kind of counselling and all that, especially in young children, a lot of them kind of think that just preaching some, oh, I've got a youth offending meeting, I can't be bothered with that. Where, as you say, people like kind of ourselves and people who could just share experiences with them. And as you say, it's not you just kind of asking them or telling them what to do. You're letting on a bit about yourself as well, and it's building that relationship and just knocking them bridges down. And if you're kind of willing to open up to another person and show your weaknesses and your dark side as well, it's more than likely that they'll be more willing to do the same to you. So, as you say, to me, it's not massively about being overqualified or a doctor, and that to me, it's just having them experiences. And I often find they're the best ways to kind of engage in conversations with people and to find out kind of their deep-rooted problems just by sharing your own and then sharing theirs with you, building that kind of trust and relationship.
Let's bring it back to rugby. I want to ask you how it actually been playing for England in just a sec, but just to expand on that point, how do you think we are as a sport now at rugby league in terms of sharing and looking out for each other? You know, going back 10 years, you say you didn't feel you could talk, and perhaps that made you unable to look out for your teammates. Do you think we're all right at that now? Do you think we're getting there?
Yeah, 100%. As I say, I still think there's a couple of things we can improve on, but from where we was talking like 10 years ago, we're streets head, and I think we're streets head of a lot of sports in regards to what we do. And as I say, we've got the clinics and stuff, and the welfare officers, they do brilliant jobs. Having a welfare officer at each club's just great. Someone from the start, from the coaches, if you are in a bit of trouble or not feeling so great, you can just chat to privately. And obviously, lads have the WhatsApp groups to keep in touch regular, so that's another bonus. Just lads just checking in on each other and just making sure everyone's all right. Like you say, all the text is just a little text, just to see how somebody is. And you never know. Usually, you get, yeah, I'm okay, but you never know. The one time you might get, you're not feeling so good, and you can be there for them.
So, what was it like putting on the English shirt for the first time?
Yeah, it was amazing, absolute dream come true to get presented my cap the night before and to put on my England shirt, especially alongside my teammate Tom Johnson. It was amazing, just representing the club. I'm not too sure when was the last time Wakefield really had two players playing for England, so to be doing the team proud as well, it was great having my mum there and my partner and everything. Yeah, it was one of the best experiences I've had, definitely.
That would have meant a lot to them as well, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was would have meant the world to them, and the same. Hungry to get more. I don't just want to sit on that one. Yeah, I'm keen to get some more under the belt and have some good memories down the line.
So you're still loving the sport. You've still got the hunger for it, haven't you? Definitely.
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, I've still got 4 years left at Wakefield, so I feel like I'm just coming into my prime, and as I said, all my personal things are kind of under control. So I feel like the next 4 or 5 years, you'll really start to kick on and see the best of me, hopefully. And as I say, the off-field stuff does play a major part in your life. You've kind of got that under control. Your rugby kind of looks after itself, and it's an important thing. So yeah, I'm really excited for what the future holds. Well, hopefully, once the sport gets up and running again, hopefully that's sooner rather than later.
Yeah, does that give you anxiety? Rugby league doesn't have the millions of Premier League football. Does that worry you where the sport might be after we get out of what we're going through now?
Yeah, it does. I do have that anxiety for the kind of sport, and I do kind of worry about the sport and where it's going to go from here, and kind of the impact on the grassroots and all that, like where the next kind of generation is coming from to keep the game going. But again, it's the same with contracts and all stuff like that. It's something that if you have to take a reduction, again, it goes back to I can't really control that. if the club decides that the salary cap's getting dropped, or the RFL decide that, and you have to take a pay cut, or whatever happens, again, I can't control that. So again, it's kind of pointless worrying about something what I can't control. So at the moment, I'm just kind of focusing on just keeping in shape, and as you say, just doing the best I can.
I feel like I've really learned a lot from you during this chat, and I've been quite moved by a lot of things you said. Perhaps as a final thought, then, if you were speaking now, as I hope you might be on this Rugby League United podcast, to any of the younger generation listening, who I would hope would be inspired by you, and they are thinking of breaking into professional sport, but perhaps are filled with doubt or anxiety and about what that might bring, and feel that they can't talk to anyone because it's a macho sport, so they shouldn't perhaps get involved. What would be your advice, and what would be your message if you could have a direct line to someone who is thinking like that?
Yeah, it'd just be to open up. And I know you get a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's easier said than done," but talking is such a massive relief. Like you don't realise until you actually talk to somebody who's kind of not judging you, just willing to sit and listen. Like it's like a weight lifted off your shoulders. So just to be able to talk to people and feel comfortable in that, and not be kind of ashamed or feel like anybody's judging you, or you're going to be knocked down a few pegs. And so yeah, that'll be my clear message. And as well, another one is just to kind of, I think a massive one is understanding your emotions. So for me, that's, it doesn't matter what line of work, whether you're a sportsman, whether you're a postman, whatever you are, like throughout life, you are going to have different emotions daily, whether that's happy, sad, angry. We're all going to go through them. So it's about dealing with them emotions. So personally for me, a lot of the times when things went wrong, I dealt with them in the wrong way. I dealt with my emotions in the wrong way. So I'm in a lot better place now when things do go wrong. For instance, at the beginning of the year, I had a tragedy with my nephew passing away. So for me, I'm looking back 5 years ago, I'd have just been self-destruction, taking pain, prescription drugs, all stuff like that, and just causing chaos really. Where now my emotions, I'm in control of my emotions. I could deal with that the right way, and by talking to people around me as well, you kind of you get through it as a family really. And I think that's my clear message, just to be able to kind of control your emotions, understand your emotions, and no matter what that emotion is, that it's fine to have that.
Reece, you've been a brilliant guest. I wish you nothing but success. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. Cheers, mate.
That's Reece Lyne, and we'll be back next week on the Rugby League United podcast.